Hey there, I am Laura Swain and I am one of your teachers for 2nd Timothy this summer, and we are preparing homework for week 2, so I thought I'd pop on and share a little bit about what that looks like for me. I want to remind you of 2 things before I talk about our homework tools. One, the At Home in the Word series that you hear us mentioning a lot. The reason we talk about it a lot is because it's such a helpful tool, and there's a corresponding video to every single tool we'll use this summer. So please take time to go watch those. They're fairly short, and they have lots of helpful information both for new Bible students and those of you who are seasoned as well. Secondly, I want to remind you that this summer you can always go deeper and do more than we suggest. The homework and guidelines we give are meant to help and support you, not to confine you. Now, there's 2 tools this week, and I'll share a little bit about what each look like in my personal study. First tool is repeated reading. So this week we are reading the whole book of 2nd Timothy, ideally in one sitting and ideally several times throughout the week. And that helps us read it as it was first intended to be read, since it's a letter. And secondly, it helps us identify overarching themes that we might otherwise miss if we're just studying a small chunk of the word. Now, I'm going to be honest, epistles are really difficult for me to read. They're not my favorite genre of the Bible. They're so dense. They have it's like memory verse after memory verse that I have heard before but don't always know what they mean. They have really dense theological ideas in them. Paul uses word pictures that just confuse me, and the sentences are a mile long. So please know that it's okay as you're going through this week reading this whole book in one sitting. You're going to have times when you read a passage and think, I have no idea what that means. That happens to me too. It happens to all of us. And it may feel unsettling to leave that confusion in your study right now, but it's actually the perfect spot to launch you into deeper study in the coming weeks. My first few reads, when I go through this and read the whole book at once, I typically try not to stop for confusion like I normally would in deeper study, because I remember that my purpose is to get this broad view of the book, which is harder for me to get when I'm pausing so frequently throughout. What I do when I have those moments of confusion in my first read, or even second or third read, is to look at the surrounding text in the passage right there to see if the answer is illuminated for me, and I might jot down how my question was resolved in that moment, but most of my questions are not resolved that quickly. That leads me to the second tool for this week, which is annotation. It's a big word for taking notes, and I want you to know that my annotation personally for this overview reading looks extremely different than my annotation does for deeper study that we'll do in the next 6 weeks. It's much more sparse, and again, because my goal is to move through quickly. And so my goal for annotating during this first read is to mark the work I want to do later. So for me, that looks like lots of question marks scribbled in the margins. I circle words I want to look up definitions for later. I highlight repeated words, and usually you may see themes emerging out of those. I like to color code them, but you don't have to do that. I put squares around connecting words, and again, this is just something I do. You don't have to do it this way. Connecting words such as like, therefore, you then, so. That helps me cue, again, like later when I'm reading, it gives me a stop sign to go back, summarize what came before so that I know what ideas Paul is connecting. Now, oh goodness, these long sentences. When I read some of these, even if I read them a couple times in a row, it's difficult to know what the point is or what the sentence is actually saying. And so what I'll do, this is something I may pause for in my initial reading. I'll exclude all the clauses, even though they're very helpful. They're there for a purpose, but I break it down to the bare bones, like a subject and a verb, like almost like a grammar exercise, and try and find out what is the most basic way to say this, and then I can add in those layers of meaning in my future readings. I like to jot down my quick reactions. Sometimes I'll make funny little emoji or smiley faces as I go, like surprised eyes. And even though I prefer pencil, I don't usually erase. If I discover something later in study that and realize I interpreted something incorrectly, I'll cross it off instead of erasing and then put the correct interpretation next to it. And I like keeping track of both my changing reactions and my changing thinking because it's a good indicator as I look back through my notes and future rereadings that God, He is a faithful teacher, isn't He? He meets me in my confusion and He helps me when I feel overwhelmed by what the Word has to say to me, and He wants me to know Him more. So in future weeks, there will be plenty of other things to take notes on, but this is a good start for now. And I want you to remember more than anything that you do not have to be artistic or tidy or all-knowing to take notes either in your Bible or in your printed copy of the text. That's not the point, right? These words that we're writing down help us pause to listen to what God has to say to us. And later on, they'll give us clues back to what God has taught us in His faithfulness before. So I'm really excited to hear about what God's been teaching you this week, and I hope this video is helpful for you and isn't an opportunity for comparison like Jillian shared with us before. I know God is doing great things in you, and I hope you have a great next week of study.